Hey everyone, go blue. The NCAA notice of allegations for Connor Stallions has leaked, and I'm checking around, and I don't think the ceiling's fallen just yet. It's all coming up next on Michigan Wolverines Live.
You guys should check out the Michigan Wolverine Live. They're out here doing great things, doing great podcasts, great live shows. They're really just doing their thing, help them blow up.
And welcome to another episode of Michigan Wolverines Live. It's our 160th show, believe it or not. And it's also August, believe it or not. Tuesday, August 6th, 2024. My name's John Diadamo. I'm going to take you through the next hour or so. You can follow me on Twix at John Diadamo right here. And I do want to remind everybody, as always, to go ahead. I don't care if you got some coins to rub together, or if you're like me back in college when I didn't have anything, and at the very least, all we ask, just hit that like button. It just takes a second, and it does so much for just getting our content out there in front of a lot of people. So go ahead, hit that like button, share this out with a friend, and big news for your commute. Our show is now available, not just on YouTube and Twitch and Twitter/X. Our show is now available on audio podcast every Tuesday show. You can get it on Spotify. You can get it on Audible. You can get it on Amazon. And now, I have confirmed this. As of the other day, we are now live on Apple Podcasts. That's right, folks. We went to the Apple headquarters. We spoke with Mr. Cook. And we got it done. Apple Podcast is now one of the formats that you can listen to the show in. Very exciting. And of course, send us a super chat if you're so inclined, and you're going to get your comment or question to the very top of the list. Without further ado, to help me introduce our Kenneth Grant tracker, my co-host today is Ferris Khan in the house. Ferris, go blue. Welcome back. And as always, we love having you here, man.
Go blue. I am so excited to be here. We have so much to talk about. There's a lot of opportunity for us to provide some rebuttals today to a lot of arguments that have happened over the last couple of days. I want to make sure I do that. But I also love the game of football, not this legal stuff and all that kind of stuff. I'm hoping we can talk a little bit with football. That will happen too. Very excited. I do have the hammer in case we need it. It's here. I have some dice in case we need that too. So I'm ready to go. I've got all the props. Just let me know if I need to use it for anything.
Well, one of our YouTube members has asked, are you going to leak any of the show details to the press? In a interest, I wonder what that's a reference of, Ferris. But we appreciate you, Keegan, for being here.
Keegan, I will say that I did leak some of my points already on TikTok at Bobblehead Guru. So about half an hour ago, I did a extended length TikTok. TikTok has allowed me to go 10 minutes now. So I do some of these 3 or 4 minute videos. I did one that was probably about 2 minutes or so. Look for that. If you're on TikTok, look for that. It seems like we have a different audience there. So that's pretty cool.
Hey, and there's a different audience at each. I love that. Like each part of the community, whether it's X, whether it's Twitch, there's different people who go on to each one, and TikTok is now our new lane where you can get some content, and very excited to see that grow as well. So let's bring up the Kenneth Grant tracker, and unfortunately, we do have some news to break that isn't so happy. So we have actually, Ohio has gained some ground on us, folks, and that we can't let that stand. For our Kenneth Grant tracker right now, we are at 690. And let me get this up here. We're at 690 between us and the Ohio State channel. We don't want that. Who wants that? Nobody, except for Ohio fans. So please consider, consider hitting the subscribe button for what we're doing, because it means a lot to us if you consider doing that. And we'll have the Kenneth Grant tracker up in a second. I guess it went away, but
yeah, okay, yeah.
Ferris, do you have some commentary on that while I bring it up?
Yeah. So first of all, our goal was to pass Ohio State by the Texas game. In order to do that, we don't just need you. So first of all, it doesn't cost anything to subscribe. Please go ahead and subscribe. That would be appreciated. In addition to that, get some friends and family to, that might be more casual Michigan football fans to subscribe as well. We do think that, as we get closer to the season, we'll have other people who are interested in our content that are kind of taking the summer off, so to speak, from football. Invite them to come to our channel as well. Our target, we are laser focused at having Kenneth Grant actually tackle Ryan Day on or about the Texas game, somewhere around there. So that is our goal. We can do it. Much like you see in the track and field races, there's some ups and downs. Somebody's in third place, all of a sudden they go ahead and win it at the end. That's what we're trying to do. We're trying. We know the Ohio State channel is growing. We just have been growing faster. Temporary setback. We'll get that number of 690 down to 500, 400, 300, all the way down to 0 by the Texas game.
Think of it like in the first half, CJ Stroud throwing to Olave or Marvin Harrison Jr. or whatever. Think of it like that. Just you have a temporary setback before Hassan Haskins or Donovan Edwards goes up for another rushing touchdown. It's just like that. So if you want to win the game, if you want to win the battle between our channels, help us do that. What are you doing to beat Ohio State today? Go ahead and hit that subscribe button and encourage all of your friends to do it. Before we get started on content, though, we do have a couple of YouTube member comments I want to shout out. So first of all, Dependent Fanatic, who's a YouTube member and also a mod for us and does a fantastic job. He has his own channel, does a fantastic job with that. Glad to see this hurricane hasn't affected you, John. Prayers to those dealing with Debbie. Yeah, I got off pretty easy. It was a couple of days of rain here, so didn't leave my house for a couple of days for sure. It was pretty bad. But as for the flooding, it was worse up north, like in the Sarasota and those areas. They're like flooded in their like they can't leave unless they have a boat. So they're really dealing with it. So I got off pretty easy. Didn't even have much of a power outage, which normally with storms we always get power outages. So not too shabby. Doreen here, who of course crosses enemy lines to join us every Tuesday and Thursday night, which we appreciate. Tim Leineke was making a comment about Stallions and got timed out. So listen, folks. Here's the thing with us, and I'm not gonna shit on anybody else's show. There's one in particular called the Buckeye Scoop. Let's just be honest. Okay. Now look. What we like to do, and others like Menace to Sports does this, where they let everybody on. As long as you're respectful, and we're the same way here. I don't care if you're a Wolverine, a Buckeye, a Nittany Lion, Fighting Irish. Doesn't matter to me. As long as you're good to each other, and attack ideas, not people. You're good. Don't say anything racist or sexist or politically related. Don't troll the same thing 15 times in chat. Those are the 3 rules. That's it. And most people are good. And we have a great community here. So, Tim, trust me, I feel for you. Been there many times. But we appreciate that you're here with us and that you're a YouTube member. And let's see if we got any other good ones. I mean, they're all good, but John is the Storm. Oh, we got. Okay, I know he's not a YouTube member, but he's an honorary loyal friend and true and trusted agent, whatever that Harbaugh line was. Mike G in the house, folks, and he goes hard in the paint too on the other podcast. So we appreciate that. Okay, folks, I think it's time to start diving into some topics, and we're going to begin with the one that everybody's talking about. So, look. This has been in the works for, I'd say, almost a year. We first reported the Stallion situation almost a year ago here at Michigan Wolverines Live with the voice of college football. And now, finally, some semblance of text from an actual leaked version of the forthcoming notice of allegations for Michigan. ESPN obtained it. And I've got some of the highlights for you here. So according to this draft, and before we actually look at it, remember that this is a draft, and it's very possible that the NCAA is using this as leverage for negotiation to get a settlement. It's very possible that the actual notice, the actual letter, is not as, it could be better, it could be worse than what we're hearing here. But the bottom line is Connor Stallions was found. They have 58 counts of essentially the impermissible sign acquisitions that could potentially result in a level 1. There's also Jim Harbaugh, Chris Partridge, Denard Robinson. They're all potentially in line for level 1s. And imaginary punishments, because I don't think any of them plan, especially Harbaugh, does not plan to come back to college ever again. So those are called imaginary. And then you've got Sharon Moore, who had 52 text messages with about the Stallion situation, and deleted them. And people delete text messages all the time for all kinds of reasons, including an oh shit moment. What the hell could happen here? It's very possible he had a human reaction of shit, what do I do? And he was quickly able to retrieve every single text message. And folks, if any of those were incriminating, he'd be getting a level 1. So I think he just had a human moment of, oh crap. And they quickly were retrieved. They were handed over to the NCAA. But here's my final point, and then I'm going to let you go with your initial takes, Ferris. But this is the funniest one. Michigan potentially faces a level 1 violation. Well, actually, there's a couple funny ones. But this one here, pattern of non-compliance within the program. Let me give you one example of how you can be non-compliant with the NCAA. Jim Harbaugh's lawyer, Tom Marsh, on X, shared some emails publicly where the NCAA asked Tom Marsh's firm to send 6,199 emails, which his estimation would have said it would have taken 51 hours to, and actually I think for a lawyer that's being pretty generous. You could have stretched that out even more if you wanted to. Some attorneys do that. But the bottom line is it would have cost Jim Harbaugh $38,000 in legal fees. And by the way, it's not like this is the only thing that they were doing. They also have like other stuff in there. It's a law firm. They have other things that they're working on other than having 24 hours to send almost 6,200 emails. And that counts as non-compliance. Because they asked him to send over almost 6,200 emails. That's non-compliance because they said, look, I don't have the time to do it in the time frame that you had. We need at least until February 20th. So he said, we'll do it, but he said we need time. And they called that non-compliance, according to Tom Marsh. So this is the kind of silliness that we're hearing. And that's on top of potential penalties for Instagram verification, potential penalties for $100 check for a golf tournament. Is this how? I mean, you've studied football. You've looked at these. You've looked at these things and the whole body of what's out there. I mean, Does this strike you as the biggest scandal in college football history to you? Oh, you're muted, or I can't hear you. One or the other.
I got it. Yeah, that was quite an intro there. Sorry, I was moving things around because the sun is all over the place. So if I'm in the shadow, it's just because the light, whatever. But anyway, the lack. What's the term? Lack of institutional control. Is that the term for?
Yeah.
Okay. So there is a lack of institutional control. There definitely is. And that lack of institutional control is with the NCAA. Not with Michigan, with the NCAA. The idea that all these things that are happening behind the scenes are just whenever the NCAA wants, they can just be leaked. Draft documents can be leaked. This is the second time that things have been leaked during this, whatever you want to call it, sign stealing scandal. So, part of this, where is the NCAA accountability? NCAA and ESPN are working together. Maybe I'll just call them NCAA, ESPN altogether, to collude against Michigan. And Michigan, on the other hand, cannot respond because that's how the rules are. You can't respond to an ongoing investigation. So one side can leak we don't know if it's perfect, if it's right, if it's wrong, whatever. And yet the other side can't respond to it because it's an investigation. So, I really believe, I agree. Sam Webb had a sort of panel over the weekend, and one of the points, I didn't agree with every point, but one of the points that I agree with is the idea that there isn't much there. So what do? You win in the court of, you try to win in the court of public opinion by leaking documents. And, I think that's, and it's not even official versions of the documents. It's a draft version of the document. So I'm thinking, if the draft version of the document's accurate, it's this big of a hammer, right? And then it becomes smaller with the final version, because my understanding is, the NCAA might say, hey, you did A, B, and C, and also X, Y, and Z. And Michigan could say, hey, you know what? We didn't really do B the way you're saying. Connor Stalions, for example, one example I'll come up with, has nothing to do with us when he's subcontracting with CMU. Why are you blaming us for that? That's a problem with Connor Stalions and CMU. There's no way he can just swing by the bookstore and get the exact uniform of the coaches. And you would be foolish to be on the sidelines when he could be 3 rows up out of TV camera view. It doesn't make your logic doesn't make any sense. That's a CMU issue, not a Michigan issue. So for example, that's one example of where Michigan could come back, and then the bean counters in the NCAA could say, oh yeah, I guess you are right about that. We'll take that that one off the list, so to speak, right? So that's, I think, the horse trading that goes on. I will also say there was horse trading that was probably going on 9 months ago. A lot of people said, hey, Michigan, was all full of this stuff where they were going to fight it to the end, and then they backed down when they saw the evidence. Well, the other piece of it is the NCAA/Big Ten also backed down by saying, hey, you guys are 9-0. You guys can keep playing. We're not going to stop you from playing. You can go ahead and keep playing Big Ten games. You can keep playing the Big Ten championship game. And if you keep winning, you can go to the playoffs, and we're not going to stop you. That was sort of part of the deal. A lot of times people talk a big game, then there's a negotiation, and the deal that was, apparently allowed for Michigan to do is, hey, we won't bother you anymore this year if you just give Harbaugh 3 games and stop fighting to get Harbaugh back on the sideline. Michigan administration, in my opinion, agreed to that, but I don't think Harbaugh did at all. I think that was a big friction point. Harbaugh did want to fight it to the end. He wanted to clear his name, so to speak, from his perspective. I'll stop for a second.
Absolutely.
I rambled there, but
yeah, no, and I think those are that's all great points. It definitely seems very ticky-tack and Colin Cowherd made this point. It seems very ticky-tack when you have Lambos and Porsches in the parking lots, and when you have players getting paid $1 million to come to your school, and schools like Baylor are putting out T-shirts and wearing T-shirts that say "We pay players," and then on the other side, Michigan might get a penalty for getting an Instagram account verified, and for these ticky-tack things, the burger, the various things that we've seen from Burgergate, from Stallions, and it blows my mind. I think it is a witch hunt. I think it's did Connor Stallions go above and beyond what he probably should have? Probably, based on some of the actual evidence that we have. The little bit that we have seen is that, yeah, it happened. And yeah, he had his name on the damn tickets. And we told you that a year ago. There's really no new information there other than, okay, that's Connor Stallions. How does that translate to everybody? And that's when they started talking about non-compliance. And they started talking about these broader issues which don't tie to the actual evidence of, did Connor Stallions even break a bylaw at all? So they had to go this whole other route with the non-compliance, and we just saw one example of how you can easily get in non-compliance if you don't send over 6,200 emails within 24 hours. So it's a little ridiculous. I would also say, as far as punishment, this person is not a Michigan fan that I'm about to talk about. Pete Thamel is not a Michigan. Pete Thamel is a reporter that's been reporting on this, literally has been helping Ohio State and NCAA leak stuff out. And yet even he is saying he doesn't see any postseason bans or wins. What he sees is a short suspension for Sharon Moore at maximum. So after all this with the hammer, and the hammer's coming for Michigan, and you're going to vacate 36 wins, and you're going to vacate the Natty, and all of these things, Sharon Moore might have to sit out against Southern Wichita State in 2025.
Yeah, okay. A couple things. I do think, I think there's this logic that, hey, Michigan didn't fight in the fall, you talked about lawyers and their bandwidth and all that kind of stuff. They were playing, they're playing Penn State. Then they have the week. Then they've got to go ahead and play Maryland. Then and then they have a week. Then they're playing Ohio State. They're trying to fight in between games, and they came to a resolution that's like, okay, we get to keep playing. Fine, you've got your Harbaugh suspension. Let's just keep playing. We're good with that. I think that's what happened. On the other hand, if the hammer is any bigger than this, or really that emoji that you have there, if the hammer is any bigger than that, then I think Michigan will fight. They will take their time and they will fight, because it's not, there's a time element to this, a bandwidth and time element to this as well. And there's it's not like the NCAA is without risk here. Michigan can bring up defamation. They can talk about lack of institutional control with the NCAA. They can have all kinds of potential counter arguments to this as well. So, this could be end times for the NCAA. I mean, this is the kind of thing that could be one of these landmark things that does them in as well, if Michigan does fight. So I don't think that this is like the all-powerful NCAA, and Michigan just needs to accept whatever they give, and it's going to be the death penalty. It's not going to be the death penalty. It's going to be taking away the championship. It's not going to be that. It's going to be firing Sharon Moore. It's not going to be that. I mean, I'm saying this based on what we see in the draft report, if it's actually real, or some form of that is actually real, right? So I do say that. So I do have that caveat. That's all. So go ahead.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, there's a lot to this, and Jim Harbaugh was just asked, because he was named in this report, that he does not apologize. He said he was raised to never lie, never cheat, never steal. No one's perfect. If you stumble, you apologize and you make it right. Today, I do not apologize. I did not participate, was not aware, nor complicit in said allegations. So for me, it's back to work and attacking with an enthusiasm unknown to mankind. So he is sticking by that he had nothing to do with this. And now he actually can speak about it a little bit without fear of Michigan holding him back, because now he's running the Chargers franchise. So he doesn't have the Michigan people that are like telling him, don't say anything. Now he can fight back if he wants to, and punch back there. I'd also like to mention the premiere of the Sign Stealer documentary is coming out August 27th on Netflix, where Connor Stalions will be speaking out for the first time. And maybe all of this here, was this an intentional leak? We brushed on this topic a few minutes ago, but could this have been an intentional leak, Ferris, where the Sign Stealer documentary is coming out? Connor Stalions is going to be giving his side of the story. He said, if he's the bad guy, then everybody in college football is the bad guy. He said, that overnight his life changed after this. It's going to be very interesting, and keep it to Michigan Wolverines Live, and we'll be reporting on the Sign Stealer documentary. But do you think that this timing had to do with the fact the documentary is coming up?
Yeah, I mean, the NCAA has picked great timing for things, right? to damage Michigan. So, I mean, at least that's the way I look at it. That's my perspective. Some people are saying, hey, what if Michigan leaked all of this? And I would say, why would they have done that? That doesn't make any sense to me. Yeah, I mean, maybe to get ahead of things, I don't know if some people think this is a Stallion saying, if I did this, here's what it would have been, something like that. My guess, I'm just guessing here, but this is an educated guess. Stallions believed that he found a loophole. He thought he figured out a way to be smarter than he actually was. He told, according to the report, he told some interns about it and said, hey, this is totally kosher what I'm doing, and kind of convinced them. Maybe he also convinced one coach or somebody on the staff or something like that. But that's the extent of to which the NCAA could find anything. I think it's totally reasonable to think that Jim Harbaugh and others did not cooperate because they're just not on good terms with the NCAA, because in good faith, the NCAA did stuff behind their back, and that's Harbaugh's point of view that I would support. I am interested to see the Stallions documentary. I would like to see what he actually has to say. Mm-hmm. We'll see how much new information there is there. There are all kinds of wild things about, Ryan Day's brother, or, other teams doing things, and Michigan has a Pandora's box of things that they could open if needed, of what other teams do. I know, I think you mentioned the Ohio State sign stealer. Sometimes people say, well, look, Connor Stalions was right on the sideline and he was giving signals and, giving the coaches information. That doesn't really prove anything, because sign stealing is legal in college football, and most teams, including Ohio State, have a sign stealer.
Yep.
Right? John, I think you know the name. You might know. I don't know if you have it off the top of your head, but
yeah, I know Ohio State has one.
Somebody watching knows the Ohio.
Someone will put it in chat.
There is a Connor Stalions sign stealer. I'll post it when I get it. So. My thoughts on it is I want to watch it. I want to watch it live. I wish there was a way that we could kind of watch it together. I'll just think about it. Maybe we'll figure out a way, and maybe it's on my own personal channel or something. So,
Yeah. I'd love to see what we can do there, whether it's live tweeting or something to discuss it as a group. That would be cool. And obviously we'll be talking about it on the shows. But to wrap all this up in a bow, here's my final thought. If you've watched this program, you know this already, that I said this with Mark Rogers, and we discussed what the new governing body could be. But I think it's time. Look, the NCAA is a great organization for table tennis and for golf and for maybe even basketball. But football, it's time for a new governing body. When you have Lambos in the parking lots, when you have millions of dollars of bags being thrown around, and you're going to come after a school who did try to cooperate, where some schools basically said, go pound sand, we'll see you in court. And then, by the way, a lot of them won, and the NCAA backed off because they're notorious for losing in actual court because a lot of their stuff is not actually, legal in terms of the letter of the law. It's just, this is their bylaws. This is what you have to technically work under. But anytime that shit gets challenged in court, there tends to be settlements or folding. So I think it's time once and for all for a college football commissioner and a governing body. Maybe the Big Ten has some seats, maybe the SEC has some seats, and the others have fewer seats given the representation of each one. Maybe they have, I don't know how it would go, but the bottom line is get a college football commissioner, get Mark Rogers to do it. Get somebody who knows their shit and who isn't, who can actually competently do this and punish fairly when punishment needs to happen. And punish the schools that are paying players and doing all this stuff the same as, or worse even, because I think that's way worse than an Instagram verification when everybody's getting Lambos. So like what, I think it's time to just come up with a new governing body. I think you're starting to see that with the advisory group that the Big Ten and SEC are putting together, where they do have now that, I believe it's called advisory group or some type of group where it's a multi-person member panel. But I think it's time to flip the script and get rid of the NCAA for football. What do you think, Ferris?
Well, my daughter is requesting a live video reaction for the Stallions documentary, so I'm going to have to do it. So we're going to do that. What I will say is, on the one hand, you have a situation where you've got not hamburger bags full of money, but just the hamburgers plus a few other things. Okay, I get it. YouTube or I'm sorry, video conference or something or other, right? That is getting Harbaugh 3 games. On the other hand, these same recruits or recruits like them are getting, $100,000 plus vehicles. It's just not. I mean, it's obsolete. The NCAA is obsolete. We're not talking about hamburger bags full of money. We're talking about the hamburgers, right? So it's just not aligned. This whole thing is not aligned. I agree with you. The other thing I'll say is Tony Petitti. Okay, Tony Petitti does not know the game of college football. I will stand behind that statement, because if he did, he would know that multiple teams all the time, every year, all the time, collude with each other against a common opponent. And they do it out in the open. They tell ESPN, hey, I called this coach to get some intel on the next opponent that I'm going to have in the bowl game or whatever. And what does that do? Well, it not only gives them signs, not only are they advanced scouting for each other, they are also giving their own expertise. They're saying, here's some tendencies that you may want to look at, et cetera. So the idea that Tony Petitti said that there was something to the effect that this was a danger to college athletes, that the other team knows signs, he does not really understand the game of college football, because in college football that happens all the time. Teams are getting intel on each other, bending the
Correct.
rules, if you want to call it that, or it's not even bending the rules. I think they're allowed to do that. The problem for the NCAA is they never defined what an advanced scout is. So they said you can't do advanced in-person scouting, but coaches scouting for each other, I would think that's just as much of an advanced scout as some rando college kid getting paid $100 to video a game for Connor Stallions. So that's why I say, Petitti is not Tony Petitti is a TV guy from Major League Baseball. He does not
There it is.
He does not understand the game of football. He understands how to negotiate contracts, maybe in sports, but that's the extent of his knowledge. So to me, it was a total embarrassment that he got bullied into that position of saying that Michigan was somehow potentially it's going to injure players of opponents because of this sign stealing thing.
Yeah, I think I think we could go on for hours on this, but the bottom line is that there is so much going on in college football with the elite programs where they have signed decoders, they have people watching the All 22 all the time, and I would venture to say there's people going to games. I can't prove that. I'm not making a factual assertion. I'm stating an opinion. This is where I'm not like making a factual claim, but I believe that Michigan isn't the only one doing this, because to me that the act of hiring some buddies to go to games with iPhone footage, that is such a if it's not a staffer, if it's not a full-time staffer, that doesn't break the bylaw. So I don't know. I just think there are varying degrees of this. Michigan just happened to get caught, and we will see probably more in the next 1 to 2 years of other schools and what they're doing in various aspects as well. But with that said, I do want to honor our 2 membership messages and gifts. So first of all, friend of the program, Blue Wolverine. Blue Wolverine has now been a member for a month. I can't believe it's been that long. Time flies. Blue, you're always welcome here. Smash that like button or day will be sad. So smash that like button. And yes, we do have the new, for anybody who joins at least the $2.99 membership, which is the lowest level membership, you can join for $2.99 and you'll get the Crying Ryan Day emoji. So go ahead and sign up for the $2.99 at least. And Detective Loki is helping one lucky person become a YouTube member for free. So if you do want to contribute yourself, that's great. You also might get lucky enough that one of our existing members may gift you a membership. In order to get that, you have to have receiving gifts turned on in settings. So that's something to keep in mind. If you're wondering, well, why is this person getting a gift? Well, it's random. It's based on interactivity in chat and interactivity. And then it's also who's got receiving gifts on and who doesn't. So Loki has gifted. Congratulations goes to CW the second, a Buckeye. So there it is. So we've got Buckeye members, we've got Wolverine members, and we've got others who aren't either. And now CW11 has joined Doreen and ZZM / Madamus Prime Entertainment, and also Phillip as one of our Ohio State YouTube members. So enjoy your emojis. I have a feeling you're not going to be using the last 3 years of Michigan victories emoji or the Ryan Day emoji, but enjoy it anyway.
Well, there may be some people who are not big Ryan Day fans that are Ohio State fans, so they could use that emoji there in that kind of situation. But we are open, and we are. You do get all of the rights as a member. So if you want to see what is happening behind the scenes, become a member, even if you're an Ohio State fan.
Yeah, and call our show on Thursday too if you're an Ohio State fan. We went, TJ and I went an hour and a half with Buckeyes on Thursday night show. We had Sean Garner call in, who's a Buckeye, and we had Dr. Buckeye in full Connor Stallions gear, including a headset and sunglasses and the whole 9 yards. The spy sunglasses. I mean, he did a very good job. We actually have the video here. So thanks to Dr. Buckeye for being one of those contrarian voices, because we need that. But before we get to our next topic, we have a couple of quick reminders. First of all, of course, like I just said, support our channel by getting a YouTube membership. It starts as low as $2.99, but at the $4.99 level, you get access to our monthly hangout. So just last week, we actually had our monthly hangout. So Ferris, myself, and TJ, who unfortunately wasn't able to join us on today's show, we all got together with some of our members, and we all had a hangout. And so everybody got together. We talked ball. We hung out. And these are all members who are $4.99 and higher. They came by. We had a blast, and we'll do it again later this month. And every month we'll be doing member hangouts. So consider supporting us by becoming a member for $4.99 and up if you want the hangout, and then also priority responses to comments and all that good stuff. But you get the emojis even for $2.99, which emojis are pretty fun.
Now, John, how many members do we have? We're well above 80 now, right?
Yeah, 86 last count. 86.
And we started from zero. I mean, we are growing fast. So super proud of that. Really appreciate your support. And tell a friend or tell a family member as well.
Absolutely, tell a friend, family member, and neighbor, and Uncle Mike, and everybody else. So this is a message from Mark Rogers, voice of college football, to everybody here, that Chris Gates Fitness is offering 80% off with his new program, Training Camp. So use we have the link for you right here in the description section. And if any of our mods, maybe Jackson Johnson, or one of you guys who has the link, otherwise I'll pull it up. But I'm going to tell you a little story about this. So about 2 years ago, I had a conversation with my doctor, and he said, look, I mean, you're into pre-diabetes, like you got to make some changes in your life. And I was dealing with, pre-diabetes, I was dealing with cholesterol, and I decided to go through a rigorous personal training program for 6 months, where you had your dieting going on, you had 3 times a week workouts, and then additional workouts on your own and additional cardio. And it was a program that within 6 months, I was able to drop more than 20 pounds. After that, I dropped another 10, and since have maybe picked up a few of those back. Not going to lie, but still way below what I was. And it was such like just having accountability people, even a trainer, somebody who has a routine for you, who has a program that you can utilize. Chris Gates Fitness and the new Training Camp, that's definitely something we recommend. If anybody was in a boat like my own, you can definitely check that out. Moose has it here for us. Thank you, Moose. Get yourself 80% off the first week, and just give it a try. I mean, why not? Personal training and training camps that work for me. Consider Chris Gates Fitness from all of us at the Voice of College Football. And finally, a reminder to subscribe to the SEC channel. Another reminder from Mark Rogers to subscribe to the SEC channel here at the Voice of College Football, where you can get all kinds of SEC content all the time. And we're going to be ramping that up during the season as well. But you can see interviews with various people. So definitely check that out. And I don't know if Jackson's around or if somebody's around to pop pop that link in there. I don't have it the top of my fingertips. There it is. Can always count on Double J, our chief marketing officer, to have the links ready. Go ahead and check out and subscribe to the SEC channel at the Voice of College Football. Hey, Ferris, you ready to talk fall camp?
It is time to talk football.
The rest of our show is football.
Let's get all this legal stuff out of the way. Let's talk football.
Okay. Fall camp. Now, we know that fall camp Michigan runs things very secretly. It's basically like Fort Knox. You don't know a lot of the things that are going on at fall camp, but we do know two things. We know that unlike the original reports, Alex Orji is the top quarterback performer in fall camp right now. But also noted from one of our sources is that it is very early. So yes, Alex Orji's been the best performer right now, but that also happened with check down Cade McNamara in 2022, where he was the top performer for the first week, and then J.J. McCarthy overtook him. That could happen with Jack Tuttle. That could happen with Davis Warren. But right now, Alex Orji's on top, which is what we predicted. TJ, myself, and Ferris. I think you went with Jack Tuttle. Did you go with Jack Tuttle? I forget.
No.
You went with Orji too?
You know my line. My line is Alex Orji can, in fact, complete a forward pass.
Absolutely.
That's my trademark line. So
all three of us have stayed firm that Alex Orji is the guy. So has Dependent Fanatic. And if we see more from fall camp, then we'll definitely look at that. I also think it's notable, although we would expect this to happen, but Will Johnson has said in his interviews he is focused on becoming a better leader. He is trying to become a leader of men. He is trying to take on that role on the team, not just the best cornerback in college football, but now kind of taking on a pseudo coach role as well with the younger guys who are coming up from high school, and they're learning the ropes. They're learning the Michigan way. They're learning the Michigan mentality of mental and physical toughness. And so that to me, that's a great sign. And Will Johnson, I think he's going to be a first-round pick, and I think he's going to be high in the first round. And it's great to see that he's learning those leadership strategies. So what's kind of your takes on some of these pieces from fall camp or anything that you've been hearing?
Okay, yes. So first with Alex Orji, let's go over the numbers. I know we kind of, a consensus was kind of 62%. I'll take 60% completion out of Alex Orji, but he does need to make sure the whole team keep the penalties down, keep the turnovers down, because the scoring will be potentially lower than it was last year, fewer possessions. You got to keep the penalties and the turnovers down, right? Now, the other piece is regarding Will Johnson is, I feel like Will Johnson is going to be able to cover half the field, quote unquote, half the field. Mm-hmm. And, you've got Mason Graham, Kenneth Grant. If all the attention's going there, now you're looking at other holes opening up, and the whole team, you've got three superstars on defense. Other players will start to be household names. Jayson Barnum, in particular, is one to look at. So, is the Michigan defense going to be better than last year? We've talked about this a couple times. That's a very high bar, but I think it's possible. I think the Michigan defense might be better than it was last year. We'll see, but I'm very optimistic about the idea of Will Johnson being a leader. That's fantastic.
Yeah, and I think we'll be the top cornerback in the country as well again. And like you said, shut down half the field. That's how good he is. And he was injured for pretty much the whole season last year. And he was able to, at various points, beat out Marvin Harrison Jr. and pick the ball off on one occasion. And he was injured. So imagine what he's going to do this year when he did that last year against the greatest wide receiver in the last couple of years of college football. Imagine what he's going to do fully healthy. I think that's very exciting. And with that said, we do have 2 positions to review today. And the first is tight ends. So we've had an ongoing discussion here, Ferris, on tight ends, and can they be the main receiving threat for the Michigan offense? We've had people like Antoine, I don't know if he's here today, but talking about we don't even need wide receivers. Let's just have Colston Loveland in there, Marlon Klein, put Bredesen in as a fullback, throw Zach Marshall in there, and let's just go with tight ends. And those could be a main receiving threat. Where do you fall on the tight end usage, like in terms of Kirk Campbell's offense and what we might see with Kirk Campbell at the helm?
Yeah, the thing about Michigan is they are such a tough matchup for other teams. I can't wait. I really hope Michigan makes it to the playoffs because a team that's new to Michigan is going to have a lot of trouble with Michigan. And I do think that the tight end position is where a huge mismatch would happen. And you're going to have to start playing players out of position to be able to cover Michigan. And Colston Loveland could be one of the top 50 players in college football. Maybe he is already, right? So can you get the ball to him? Can you get a jump ball to him 10 yards down the field? And can he do another 10 yards of yards after catch? And is that the bread and butter of the Michigan offense? I think against most teams, 9 out of the 12 games, that could happen. Michigan could be vanilla, and it doesn't really matter that everybody knows that Loveland's going to get the ball. He's going to get the ball, and he's going to get 20 yards on many plays just doing that. Catching the ball 10 yards downfield and then just giving us another 10 yards, right? So, but in the other 3 games, in the big 3 games, maybe the USC game, maybe the Washington game, a couple other games like that. We may need to score a little bit more. We may need to, go off script a little bit. I do think we need wide receivers. And I also think we need wide receivers for the health of our program long-term, because we are shifting from a 61, 62% running team. We may ratchet that down a few notches and pass more in 2025, 2026, et cetera, as we're getting a different talent set with our team. So, do not discount our wide receivers is what I would say. But I think we could be pretty vanilla, and Loveland can probably win a lot of one-on-ones for sure. The whole tight end room can.
Yeah. Real quick, we'll get back to tight ends. I'm just going to remind everybody in chat to be cool. Okay? As I say in Pulp Fiction, be cool. All right? Because at the end of the day, everybody respect each other. I don't care if you're a Buckeye. I don't care if you're a Wolverine. Just, keep it to football. Keep it to debate of each other's positions versus each other and actually coming at each other. That would be appreciated across the board. And if not, we're going to be, I don't have the time to do 2 warnings. So there's going to be some timeouts if we don't just stop at the personal attack. So please just be cool, help each other out. Learn, the rules are posted everywhere, but we really appreciate just some support there. And our mods, as always, do a great job. So thank you for that. But as far as the receiving threat, look, Colston Loveland can be utilized in any aspect, from a 2-yard out to an 80-yard deep shot downfield. Potentially. Like at the end of the day, like you can utilize Colston in almost every even in an X for like a play. And if you look at if you've been playing, and I know you have, Ferris, but College Football 25, Colston Loveland is used everywhere. And and because he's so tall, he's really easy to throw to on almost any play. And he's very rarely fully covered in like a man coverage situation, because what they do is they do like tight end option, or they do like a slant route or like a special route for the tight end when everybody else is doing a different route. So because of that, Colston Loveland gets open very often in college football 25. I think that'll be the case there. I'm hearing Marlon Klein in some areas might even be better than this is what Isaiah Hole, I believe, has said, and some others, that in some areas, I don't really know exactly where the calculus is there, but he's at least going to be on that other side of the line, he's going to be a problem for defenses. And Bredesen, I would like to see what I saw in the spring game. Bredesen actually catching some balls. They weren't pretty. They weren't going for 30 yards, but he was able to do it. We showed with Alex Orji connecting with Bredesen that it can be done. And I love that wrinkle, and I hope we see that wrinkle a little bit. But at the end of the day, they all need to block too, right? So if it's a wide receiver play, they need to block too, and we'll get to wide receivers in a bit. But this shouldn't surprise anybody who's been following this program for more than a couple of weeks, that we think Colston Loveland is going to be the starting tight end, usually utilized on the right-hand side of the line. Marlon Klein utilized on the left-hand side, potentially a slot situation, but a little bit more of a tight end, second tight end for receiving, whereas Max Bredesen is more of a second tight end for blocking plays. Kind of we don't have a fullback anymore, but like the de facto fullback on a play where a fullback would be used in an I formation or whatever. But how do you feel about those three? Any flips you would make, or do you kind of like them where they are, and kind of where are you at with these guys?
Yeah, I like where they are until we know more about what Klein can do better than Loveland, because Loveland, like I said, he's a top 50 player in the game. All of them need to be great blockers. I mean, that's the cool thing about Michigan, that we do not have even our, everyone has to be able to block or tackle, right? So the 61, 62% of the time that we're running, they need to still be an asset there as well. And I think they will be. It is so cool that if we have somebody who's even 70, 60% of Colston Loveland on the field at the same time, the matchup nightmare it must be for the opposition. For those of you who play college football 25, dare I say Colston Loveland is a cheat code? I guess maybe I'll say it. So
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, might as well. It's on theme for the show.
So I think that's what's going to happen in reality for most of Michigan's opponents. I'm not saying that's going to happen, against Oregon or OSU. It'll just be easy. It doesn't matter what they do. Just keep feeding him the ball. No, you've got to spread the ball. You've got to go deep. You've got to keep the defense honest. But most of the time, that's going to be a security blanket, either on the run or the pass, the tight end position. That is our strength.
Yeah, and obviously when we go down the list, right, we see Deacon Tonielli, we see Zach Marshall, and both of these guys have shown flashes of what they could do. Zach Marshall and I had a conversation, and we discussed, how he was going to try to break out a little bit more. He had a little bit of playing time his first year, but he was going to use that as a chip on the shoulder and really just trust in the Herbert way and the Tress way when it comes to strength and conditioning. Even the players that are on depth have a great head on their shoulders, and their number's going to get called early, because we have games against teams called Fresno State and Arkansas State, and you're going to see some of these guys.
Yeah, and that's the MO of Michigan as well, to give multiple players experience, and the position is so important for Michigan that we've got to prepare in case there is an injury too. So yeah, I completely agree with you. It'll be a little interesting, the Fresno State game, because on the one hand, are we going to be vanilla and a lot of backups playing? On the other hand, we do have to do kind of a dress rehearsal for a huge game that's game 2. So I'm very interested in seeing what the strategy will be against Fresno State. Some people have said, hey, take the under with Fresno State. I would kind of agree with that just on the surface, because Michigan's going to be experimenting with different things. I could see them, not, trying to put the gas pedal and just blow teams out. Maybe there'll be some rotation, there'll be backups put in. But on the other hand, they do need to prepare for Texas, and it's prepare versus give them tape. So it's kind of like, what do you want to do? Do you want to be vanilla, or do you want to get the dress rehearsal right? That game in particular will be interesting. Arkansas State, maybe that's the game, going back to the first half of our podcast today, maybe that's a game that Sharon Moore will just say, you know what, I'll just take this one game off and we'll call it good. The Arkansas State game, that's where you're going to see much more rotation, in my opinion. Or it's much more obvious that there'll be rotation. So
sure. And, Dependent Fanatic just gave you kudos for how you put that. I agree. I think that's great. I think, Fresno State is literally the only chance we have against live fire before, other than playing each other, right, in practice. But the only chance that Michigan has to try things out, to try different combinations, and then go in the Texas game and do what they can do there. So, and Blue Wolverine, of course, also saying, we're so close now. This season is so close. Who's ready? $4.99. Ferris, are you ready?
Yeah, I am. I mean, I used to have mixed emotions because oh, it's time to go back to school now, but I get football, so it's kind of like that kind of thing. Or, I like the summer weather, whatever, but now it's football. But now the weather here where I'm at, and same thing with you, it doesn't snow or whatever. It doesn't get so it's like, yeah, I'm ready for football. It's time. It's time that we play actual games. I'm tired of all this kind of sideshow stuff. I just want to see actual games. The college football 25, that was a little appetizer. That was something you could do. It was a lot of fun.
It's a lot of fun.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah. So that's cool. But it's still not real games. I can't wait for real games to happen. Just a quick note, we are going to be doing a pregame show as well as a postgame show for games this year. I'll be heading up the pregame show. Very interested if you want to put it in the comments or whatever as to what you'd want to see in that pregame show. We do have a little bit of an agenda, but we know that you may be on multiple devices at the same time. Maybe you're watching a pregame show on TV, etc. So you let us know what you think should be some of the content, and I'll take a look.
So I'm encouraging everybody here. Go ahead and tell us in chat for both the pregame and the postgame shows, because I'm open to switching up how we do the postgame show. How we did it last year is not going to reflect, and this was the case the year before too. We change it every year. Last year we turned it into a little bit more of a call-in show. And we talked about the 5 key points, the 5 key reasons for victory. We never had to do one for the 5 key reasons for defeat because we didn't lose. So that was great. But that's what we kind of did. But look, both pregame and postgame, let us know what your thoughts are, especially if you're a YouTube member. Yours get obviously put to the top because you're a monthly contributor. But those of you who are just checking us out, let us know too. So let's go ahead and talk X Factor, Sleeper, and Bold Prediction for the tight ends. Who's yours for each one?
Yeah. I mean, it's hard to say because we have two very strong candidates who would be, but I guess the obvious thing is Colston Loveland, right? So and sleeper, is Marlon Klein a sleeper? I guess I'll call him a sleeper if Marlon Klein is going to be at a Colston Loveland level, and we have a dual threat at tight end. I'll just go with that. A bold prediction. Can we predict that tight end receiving yards will be more than wide receiver yards? I don't think that's actually going to be the case. So I'm not going to predict that. I'm going to say maybe it is a bold prediction to say that the wide receiver yards will actually be more than tight end yards for Michigan. I don't know how many people are expecting that, but that's what I'll go with.
Yeah, not bad. I think X factor is pretty obvious. Colston Loveland. He's the best. He's the best tight. He's this year's Brock Bowers. He is the best tight end in the country. Even the Buckeyes admit it. Sleeper. I'm going to say Zach Marshall is going to surprise everybody and start becoming into the rotation as we get to the end of the season. The reason is because, maybe I'm biased because I actually talked to him, but the way that he's approaching this impressed me. The way that he's taking that workman-like mentality, that's what Michigan needs, and I think they're going to start sprinkling him in more. We'll see how he does in fall camp. Bold prediction, Max Bredesen is going to catch a game-winning 30-yard route towards the end of the season. Max Bredesen can catch the ball.
Wow.
And we're gonna see it, and it's probably gonna be against a team that we need an extra wrinkle for. I think Texas might be too early just because they're still developing, but I think we could see it against Ohio State because there's always a couple of weird ass cuckoo bananas plays that we run against Ohio State. Yeah. Maybe that's one where Bredesen becomes more of a receiver. But yeah, anything's possible with Kirk Campbell and Sharon Moore.
Yeah, I really like that, and that's one of those things where you say, "Wait, what's going on?" And then he catches the ball, and like, "Whoa, who caught that?" That would be fantastic if that happened. I am toying with the prediction of there will be a game this year that'll be less than a touchdown that will win by less than a touchdown against an unranked team. We'll be in trouble at some point in the fourth quarter and have to do something. Maybe it comes up then too. So maybe it's not necessarily the Oregon or Ohio State. It's hey, you know what? We got to pull some stops out here because we're going to need to win this game now, right? So that kind of happened, I think, last year with Maryland. Would you agree with that? That we. That game kept going on in the fourth quarter, and Maryland sort of kind of had a chance to win it. So arguably, I think a game will happen like that, and that is the type of play that you just you practice and then hopefully you make happen. That would be fantastic.
And friend of the program, Dependent Fanatic, good call on Hogan Hansen. Didn't include him. My bad. Maybe he can use that as bulletin board material to go up the starting. He can use the fact that I skipped him accidentally, but yeah, I think he could be good. Obviously, we know about Loveland. We know about Marlon Klein. I do think it's interesting you picked Marlon Klein as the X factor. That's a big deal. But we're really high on Max Bredesen, man, and I think he's earned it. He really, I gotta say, he's put it on film. He's not just a fullback. He can really do it in the air too. And Dependent Fanatic is predicting 5 touchdowns for Max Bredesen on ground. Is that in one game or is that across the season? I'm thinking it's across the season, but maybe not. Let us know, Dependent Fanatic.
No,
let us know.
Next prediction is going to be Max Bredesen's going to New York City. And he will be a Heisman finalist. So, okay.
Dude, by the way, I would love that if that happened. That is so pure Michigan right there. So we've got elephant in the room or Wolverine in the room is the fact that the wide receivers unlike the tight ends, because they're used for the blocking and the run game. They're used for receiving. They're used all over the place. What has been a bit more of a struggle, though, as we know, and I was about to do a whole show that was going to be a Ron Bellamy rant show, but I decided not to because he started proving it in the recruiting field. But we have seen with the wide receivers inconsistency, with a few exceptions. Cornelius Johnson from here and there in 2022. And yes, last year, Roman Wilson becoming the obvious X and deep shot answer to have a couple of clutch moments in a game where Michigan was losing against Alabama and had a couple of clutch one-handed grabs and grabs in general that saved Michigan from maybe losing that game. Roman Wilson became that deep answer. Do you think that there could be the next Roman Wilson with these folks here?
Well, I'm not going to steal your thunder because I think something you're going to say. But what I will say is that I am rooting for Samaj Morgan. I do believe that he is he has the talent, he has the swag, so to speak, as well. I think he's going to. I do think he made a few errors here and there last year. There were some times where we were. The stress level kind of went up a little bit, but I think he has learned from that, and he is on the cusp of becoming a star, maybe one of our superstars. So we'll see what happens. But Samaj Morgan is the guy I'm rooting for. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, I think that in an offense
too. So go ahead.
Well, I think in an offense where wide receivers are more heavily spotlit, like an air raid or a USC style offense, an Ohio State style offense, I think you'd see all three of these guys that we're about to talk about have even more lights out plays. The reality of our situation is that we're blessed with an incredible O-line every year, incredible running back core every year. And you don't need to fall back on the wide receivers quite as much, right? There were a few moments that in the playoffs, specifically, and against Ohio State, where JJ did have to connect with Roman Wilson with the receivers. Tyler Morris had a great run against Alabama, outran some of that SEC speed to score a touchdown against Alabama. And I do think that Samaj Morgan and Tyler Morris are pretty set. I don't really see a lot of controversy there. I think Samaj Morgan will be great in the slot. Tyler Morris, he deserves his moment to be a deep answer. But I'm going to take my victory lap now because Fred Moore is looking like he is going to be the ex-starter. He has been lighting it up in camp. And he is, by all accounts, taken the starting role. As of now, it's still early and people can overtake it. But I'm holding firm that Fred Moore is going to be in the X position against Fresno State, snap one, game one. And I do think that he could eat any of these three could ball out. Any of them. They could have their moment. I do think that Tyler Morris, given the fact that he just seems to be so on the cusp of greatness. Like he's had these moments where I've seen greatness. And if Ron Bellamy and Kirk Campbell can put it together for Tyler Morris, he could really break out. Now, Fred Moore, I think I've been a Fred Moore defender since people thought it was going to be Marion Walker at the X or Peyton O'Leary or some other person at the X. But it does look like Fred Moore is going to be the X starter. And so those are your three starters, most likely. But what I do want to dive in on with you, Ferris, is the depth. Because Amarian Walker's back. He decided to come back, flip from defensive back to wide receiver. Peyton O'Leary has shown moments in spring games that he can light it up. He's had a couple of really good moments in spring games, but he just seems to be in that depth, right? And then Amarian Stewart and CJ Charleston, I don't see either of them breaking through this year other than maybe some special team stuff. some reverses, some other things, gadgets where in practice they might realize, CJ Charleston's really great in this package. Because Michigan does that all the time. Like if they see a player that's really good for a particular package or particular concept, then they get tapped in, even if they're fourth or fifth string. Mm-hmm. So what do you see anybody here on this list that might have an impact, even in special teams, if not in the offense?
Yeah, I know you just talked about Frederick Moore, but Amarion Walker is a junior. Moore is a sophomore, correct? So
yeah, I believe so. Yeah.
So I say they battle it out. Peyton O'Leary is also a junior. It seems like it's depth, but it also seems like best man for the job, game by game might end up happening to a certain extent. So maybe this is a little unexpected, but we have some level of depth at the wide receiver position. Mm-hmm. And there's some level of interchangeability, if you want to call it that, parts that are moving in and out potentially. If we want to become more sophisticated, we'll have to see if we actually do that or not. Do we stay consistent, or do we start doing stuff that's a little bit more exotic, or getting players on and off the field, that sort of thing? And I don't know what's going to happen. First, if it's going to be Alex Orji, then I think, the gut feel is that we're going to have to kind of simplify and really focus on the run, and Alex Orji gets some of those runs as well. So it really kind of depends who the quarterback is going to be to know what's going to happen, really with the wide receiver position. But even if it is Orji, he has got to get the ball. There's got to be at least a threat. You can't have, I guess, pun intended again, you can't have the defense cheat on us, and just say, you know what, they're not going to the wide receiver. I'm just going to assume that they're going to run on this play. We've got to keep the defense honest.
And Ralph bringing up a good point that Amarion Walker is our tallest wide receiver, let's be real. There are concepts that Michigan does run with 4 wide receivers. It's not as common as other schools because we do use tight ends pretty heavily. But, you're going to see Amarion Walker. He didn't come back to play 0 snaps in starting role. Like, he is going to have concepts and, areas where they're going to rotate people out to allow Amarion Walker a chance to shine. That's going to happen. He wouldn't have come back if he was imagine how well that would have gone in the transfer portal. Hey, you're going to ride the bench all year, but you'll get a great degree. I don't think that would have gone over too well. I don't know. So I agree with you, Ralph, who's one of our YouTube members, that Amarion Walker is going to be utilized in some key concepts for sure. Okay. With that said, we've got plenty of comments from YouTube members here. Orji will play a lot no matter what. I'm not going to mention any comments on physical appearance. We try not to do that here. But thank you for being here anyway. And yeah, so let's go ahead and hit your X factor, your sleeper, and your bold prediction for the wide receiver unit.
All right, I already gave the bold prediction, which I don't know how bold that is, but the idea that the wide receivers are going to get more yards than the tight ends for Michigan. So the X factor to me, as I kind of mentioned before, is Samaj Morgan. So I think he's the man. He's the one I'm rooting for. Sleeper, I'm going to go with Amarion Walker because he doesn't have a starting role right now, but maybe he starts doing stuff that we're not expecting. I do like that the idea that he's 6'2". That is a interesting side note as well. So. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think they said 6'3" in chat, so that is something that helps. For me, the X factor, Fred Moore, the sleeper, Fred Moore, and bold prediction. I'm going to say that I'm going to say that there will be more 4 wide receiver concepts this year where Amarian Walker is utilized alongside the others. And it might be a vertical concept with verts. It might be an all go. It might be a some type of like it could be a lot of different things. But I do think that you're going to see some more 4 wide receiver stuff and Amarian Walker being utilized as well. So there you go. Not a surprise to anybody, my answer, if you've been watching the show, for sure. But and before we end the wide receiver topic, we do have some recruiting news. Now, TJ could not join us today. He would normally have his 5 or 6 people he wanted to talk about, but we do have 2 that we want to talk about that are interesting based on what's happening. So Phillip Wright is a player that we've been following and we've been reporting on that even though he committed, don't count LSU out. We've said that all along, that Phillip Wright, LSU is much closer to Phillip Wright than Michigan is in terms of geography. So you've got the weather aspect. You've got the fact that LSU utilizes wide receivers more than Michigan does. And from what we understand, Phillip Wright was presented a larger offer last week from LSU, and that is why he is decommitted from Michigan. So a little bit of news there that Phillip Wright, wide receiver, has decommitted from Michigan, and almost definitely, if it hasn't been announced already, he will be going to LSU. Any thoughts on that news?
Yeah, I mean, if you do research it a little bit, it looked like Wright's dream school was LSU. Is that how you read it?
Yeah.
So, and they're giving him the most money. So, you got to think on from the Michigan perspective. Is there a plan B? That's what I would be thinking. So, yeah, it is disappointing though. There's no doubt about it. It is disappointing to lose out on Phillip Wright.
Yeah, and look, Nevada Buck and Kirk, who's another YouTube member, we appreciate you. Yeah, I mean, nothing against Phillip Wright. And look, none of us do. We're just like, anytime someone decides to transfer, I always say respect their decision. I rooted for Andrell Anthony at Oklahoma. I even tried to root for Cade and Eric Allett at Iowa. I considered Iowa like my B team last year. And then, Cade had to go and throw a bunch of smoke at us and not even say Michigan's name in the Big Ten championship matchup. So, I mean, look, these players gave something to Michigan. In this case, not as much as like a Cade or an Eric All, even an Andrell, but look, I mean, I think that these players need to do what's best for their lives. Their socioeconomic status is another thing. Like, LSU is going to set him up with most likely housing, perks, perks for his friends and family, significant other. LSU has that SEC mentality of really kind of taking care of not just the player from a scholarship perspective or a car or anything like that, but to really help them in every facet of their life, where Michigan's still catching up on that front. And so I think that what they can set up for him down there, best of luck to him. I mean, seriously, just I hope he does well. But we do, because of that, Andrew Marsh becomes even more important to secure the commit for.
Yeah, there we go with the plan B, and you've got to think that Michigan does have a budget. So they're kind of saying, hey, okay, best of luck to you, because maybe the probability of the next player kind of goes up. Okay, let's put our resources towards that. So.
Yeah. Look, those of you who haven't watched the Andrew Marsh interview that we did, I strongly recommend checking that out. It's not even that long. It's like 17 minutes. That's it. And we had a nice conversation with Andrew. We went over some of these things. We went over like what is a big factor in the decision. Why does Michigan appeal to him? And he said the same thing that I've heard from almost every recruit, which is the people, the staff, Aaron Dunstan, right? The people that are putting together these events, the coaching staff, and what the coaching staff is willing to do, right? Including like Sharon Moore working out with Andrew Olesh's dad. And that was a fun story. So, like, these are the types of things. Jim Harbaugh did the same thing. The notorious sleepover, which, by the way, worked. Everybody always craps on the sleepover, but Michigan successfully flipped Quinn Nordine from Penn State to Michigan. So I'm assuming he probably slept in a guest room. I'm sure it was very respectful. But the bottom line is the coaching staff goes above and beyond to flip players, to be there for players, to really meet with their family, to talk to their family, and show how they can be great academically and otherwise. So I mean, TJ has Andrew Marsh as a lock. I do too. I think he's coming. I think he's coming this month.
Yeah. Okay. That's great. That's great. Yeah, I think we were pretty. I mean, if you followed us throughout the summer, we were pretty negative towards like, okay, are we going to get a wide receiver? What's going on? And so we're in a much better position now than we were. So even with that loss,
yeah, I think we're fine right now. I think Marsh is looking very good to come in. If he, for whatever reason, I don't want to put that juju in the world, but like if we need a plan B from him, that would be then I'd get a little concerned, and maybe I'd revise my Ron Bellamy needs to go speech. But at the end of the day, yes, Jim Harbaugh cared and engaged with families. Dependent Fanatic pointing that out, and also so does Sharon Moore. He's following that same principle. So
yeah, a little note about both of them, because I said at the beginning, or can you pull up my my name with the subtitle there? Yeah, I said at the beginning, I believe Harbaugh.
1 sec.
Yeah, so I believe Harbaugh. That's my tagline for the day. I believe, I met him personally. It was just a shock to see him, in coach. He's making $16 million a year. He's there with his wife and his son. He's eating a Subway sandwich. He's sitting one row in front of the bathroom where I saw him in the Delta plane going to San Diego. For some reason, he was going to San Diego. Maybe he was trying to get the most economical flight, and it was easier to get into San Diego than to go to LA. I don't know, but he seemed so authentic. I took a picture with him. Whatever. That's just my personal experience. But if you talk to players, they love Jim Harbaugh, right? So they love Jim Harbaugh. So thanks for thanks for pulling that up. Yeah. I felt a little uncomfortable. He's eating a Subway sandwich. I didn't want to bother him. I was trying to
he's the man of the people.
He even knew how to. I wasn't even looking at. I was so nervous. I wasn't even looking at the camera the right way. But he did. He knew what to do in a selfie. So anyway, it's not just me. It's recruits. It's players. They stand behind Jim Harbaugh, and he is quirky. You can say that he does some strange things or whatever, but players love him. And Sharon Moore, he sort of handpicked Sharon Moore, and Sharon Moore was so impressive. I thought he was so impressive in the Big Ten Media Days. He was obviously so impressive as being a coach under such difficult circumstances in those 3 games at the end of the year. It's just, he's not even, he's 38, 37 years old. He is, he just transitioned into the idea of being a CEO of a major, college football team so well. That's one reason why we're all so optimistic about this season and seasons to come, because it's great that we actually have 12 teams. I will say that. It would be hard to say, okay, Michigan's going to make it to a 4-team college playoff, but I stand behind Harbaugh, and I stand behind Moore. And you know what? Some people are knocking Moore or kind of trying to change his Sharon into a woman's name or something because he cried. I thought that was one of the greatest interviews I've ever seen of how much pent up emotion Sharon Moore had to keep in. He had to win that game. He had to figure out not at halftime. He had to figure out in the middle of the first half on the fly. We need to change something here because Penn State's going to beat us. And he figured out on the fly a way to change the game plan as both the offensive coordinator and the coach of the team at the same time. And I just thought, that Penn State game in particular was just masterful. And he let it all out at the end. I thought that was just fantastic. I love the idea of seeing, that's why I like the Olympics. I love seeing raw human emotion after something like that. I thought that was one of the great moments in Michigan football history.
Yeah, and to be clear, because people are going to immediately bring up that we have the Ryan Day crying emoji, and that we have mentioned that, and it's not just because he cried. I had no problem with Ryan Day crying and being emotional. My problem with the Ryan Day situation is that he called out he'd like to know where Lou Holtz is right now, and he kept emphasizing how tough his team is. We're tough. This is Ohio State. We're tough. We're from Ohio. We're tough. And it's like when you have to continue, we've learned this in public events. I won't go into specifics, but we've learned that when you have to specify how tough you are or how whatever you are, that maybe you're not so much. So maybe that's something that separates those two situations.
Yeah, I won't comment too much about Ryan Day in terms of, other than he's arguing with somebody who's in his 80s or something, which wasn't really a great look, right? So, but I'm more about Sharon Moore and kind of the positivity of Sharon Moore, and you hear even coaches say he cares about my family, he cares about how I'm doing. I am standing behind him 100%. Jim Harbaugh taught him well. Jim Harbaugh does have flaws, no doubt about it. I'm not going to be blind to that, but I believe Jim Harbaugh. So I believe in Jim Harbaugh. Let's put it that way. I believe the Chargers are going to be a very good team and contending even this year, barring injury, even this year.
Yeah, the Chargers are going to be, I think we were going to discuss this a little bit, that you had a little bit of an interaction with another podcast, and without giving them the free promotion to put their clip on here, you guys had a discussion about how he basically said Harbaugh wasn't a program builder, which was the most ignorant statement that I've heard anybody make in a long time, because the evidence, even most rational Buckeyes admit that Harbaugh turned around San Diego. He goes to Stanford. He turns that program around and wins an Orange Bowl and with Andrew Luck. Then he goes to the 49ers, which was a failing franchise. He turns that around. He gets one DPI away from winning a Super Bowl against his brother.
Three title games in a row he got to, right?
Yeah, title conferences in a row. And then finally, Michigan, which was in the darkest ages it's been in 7 decades, with Rich Rod and Brady Hoke. I know because I was there. I went to the college at the time, and it was sad. You might as well play Green Day Boulevard of Broken Dreams. That's what it felt like watching that on the field. And yes, there was Denard. Yes, there were some good things, but my point is of these four, and then I'll let you go, Ferris, is that to the assertion that Harbaugh isn't a program builder, the only way to say that is if you're not actually following Harbaugh, you're not actually following what he's done and putting in the research, and you're just commenting on ignorance. But I'll let you go because you were the one who experienced it.
Yeah, I mean, I was going to just quickly ask if that was the era where you have to buy you could buy a can of Coke or something and get some discount tickets.
Yes, that was the Dave Brandon era. Yes.
So okay, so I'm very in a way I'm kind of glad that there's a new generation and Sharon Moore has taken over. But Harbaugh took us from here to here, and we shouldn't forget that. And the idea that he has, left us and everything is in shambles, and just that kind of narrative. I would say, first of all, I would say 99 out of 100 college coaches would take 16 million. Would take the promotion. Let's call it that, of $16 million per year for 5 years. Complete control of an NFL team with a franchise quarterback. I would say 99 out of 100 college coaches would do that. Maybe the one would be Chip Kelly that wouldn't, I don't know, but something like that. The idea that he, abandoned Michigan and that was the only, and now things are in shambles. Well, he did leave Michigan, yes, but I think it was a no-brainer decision if you look at what he got offered. And maybe he would have come back to Michigan at a lower salary, maybe, but that's just parsing through things. I don't really think that would have happened. And we've got, on the one hand, the next best thing, but on the other hand, it's a new generation for a new era. Sharon Moore can recruit in a different way. He's updated some things, but the foundation was there with Harbaugh, and Harbaugh's the one who created all of that. So
yeah, there's going to be
are where they should be.
Yeah, there's going to be some content coming out, some books coming out about what happened. We reported on it a month or so ago on the show. That Harbaugh, was offered this contract and full final say over the program, but he was torn because Michigan had offered more money and was probably he would have been the highest paid coach in college football, especially since Nick Saban retired. On top of that, because Nick Saban did have a clause where he had to be the highest paid coach, and if anybody else became, then he had to get a raise. But Jim Harbaugh would have been at least up there. So the bottom line is, I think any of us here, and I know a lot of us are Maize and Blue fans, but imagine you're in his position, one play away from winning a Super Bowl. Your brother has the ring, and you're offered $18 million a year and final say over an NFL franchise, Ferris. You know how rare that is? This isn't like college where Nick Saban can run a program with full autonomy. This is the NFL where you have to answer to ownership, a GM. There's a whole management organizational structure. Jim Harbaugh gets final say over the program.
Yeah, I mean, one side note as well. Some people will say, "Well, Jim Harbaugh, didn't he have these clauses in these contracts because he was trying to protect himself?" That there could be no repercussions against Jim Harbaugh if he stayed at Michigan. I know we covered this before, but it's bubbling up again that he had these ridiculous clauses. Well, if you've ever signed a mortgage or you've even gone into a it's not a roller coaster, but whatever, you go into something that could put you in harm, right? You've got to sign all kinds of things. They've got lawyers on their ends to say that we if something happens, we're not at fault or whatever for various things. If Jim Harbaugh has the leverage, he can bring in lawyers and put that into the contract. It just makes sense. Just look at any of those legalese that you do, that you just kind of click through and say yes, 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 or you initial. it's the same kind of thing. He had so much leverage that he could bring clauses to the table as well. He was different than the rest of us with a standard employment contract. And it's totally fine for him to try to get whatever he can. It doesn't mean that he's guilty of anything. It just means that he has really good lawyers that are protecting him the best that they can, right? So
Yeah.
That argument seemed a little strange to me. I saw it bubble up recently that, Jim Harbaugh was demanding all these things to stay. Yeah, well, he had leverage, so that was part of leverage. That's what you get if you have leverage, right? So,
yeah, I don't blame him at all for fighting for the immunity clause. Not at all. I mean, given the ticky-tack nature of the NCAA and the fact that at every turn Michigan's rolled over, how could Harbaugh trust that Michigan wasn't going to roll over again once the NOA comes out and once the punishment? Like the precedent is that Michigan rolls over. Now, from what I'm hearing from some insiders in the program, is that they're not going to roll over if anything larger than a fine. If the allegations or anything results in anything more than a fine, that there may actually be a court battle here. That's what I'm looking at. But again, you've got to look at what historical precedent shows, which is Michigan just let the NCAA in, have the emails, have whatever, which is why this whole non-compliance is BS, because there are some programs that have literally faxed over the middle finger to the NCAA and has said, we'll see you in court. And Michigan at least tried to settle, to come to understanding. In some cases, I think we would argue too much. But, look, I think now it's time to fight if things happen.
And just to close the book on that one, Harbaugh was not, in my opinion, just educated opinion, I'll just put it that way, Harbaugh was not in alignment with Michigan's administration. Michigan administration was willing to compromise and negotiate, and Harbaugh was like, no, I'm right, and we need to do this. We need to fight this all the way. So Harbaugh got overruled, and that's another kind of reason to sort of quote unquote protect himself, right? It all well that ends well, so to speak. I think it was scary for a while because a whole bunch of coaches did leave and go with Harbaugh, but now I am really liking the coaching staff for Michigan, and
Me too.
Fits with this era of players getting paid, and we really did up the marketing of the program, the appeal of the program to recruits, and it paid dividends because we were in the 40s in terms of our ranking, and now we're on for recruiting ranking, and now we're close to the top 10.
And who would have thunk that like a couple of months ago? It's really impressive what Sharon Moore has done. Okay, so Wolverine Gage, go blue to you. We always want to shout out and thank our first-time viewers with something that's a Voice of College Football tradition. Welcome to the Voice of College Football, Wolverine Gage. Thank you so much. And I'm not alone. Keegan, who's one of our YouTube members here at Michigan Channel, is also welcoming you to the Voice of College Football. So come on, and you're welcome anytime on any of our shows. Subscribe, hit the bell so you get notified when Ferris does he has a series called Smash the Numbers. We've got recruiting videos. We've got all things coming. Subscribe, hit that bell, and hit the all notifications there. Couple of quick reminders before we get to our last topic. When you're doing your shopping on Amazon, as many of us do from time to time, the link is in every single video on the Voice of College Football Network to click. If you're already going there, you might as well click the link, and then Mark Rogers gets a couple of bucks. And what's wrong with that? Absolutely nothing. Then we continue to have great content, continue to build this thing. I don't know if you notice the Voice of College Football Twix account, but we have now the official Voice of College Football Twix account. It used to be Mark Rogers TV. Now it's the VOCFB, and it's a fully branded for the channel now. So we've got stuff like our buddy Justin has put together really cool graphics, like the top 25 that actually make sense graphic. Then it's you and me, so it's a little bit like Inception going on right there. You've got you got some really interesting throwback graphics, a Notre Dame fall camp up. There's all kinds of stuff going on. So if you haven't been following the Voice of College Football Network on Twix, now is a great time to do that. Here's your link, and our buddy Double J also sharing that link. And Amazon, all of that good stuff. Thank you, Double J. Looks like Moose is peacing out. Good night, Moose. Always great to have you here. Moose was the number one, the first step. We now have 86. Moose was number one, the first ever YouTube member for us, and is a moderator and contributes all the time. Let's be good to Moose, please. And let's even throw up in the chat. We got the Moose emoji. We got the moose emoji in here. Let's throw out the moose emoji. And there it is. There it is. We also have a super chat before we get to our next topic, which is Blue Wolverine, $1.99, couple of bucks. That's right, folks. And thank you for your couple of bucks. And yeah, I mean, the way I see it is this. Sometimes you do shopping on Amazon. Some people hate Amazon. They don't use it. That's cool. You do you, man. But if you're going to use it, help us out and click the link. So thanks, Blue Wolverine. And now, unless you have any thoughts on that, we can get to our coaches respect topic. So here we go. Michigan in the new USA Today issued poll on this is number 8 in the country, and I'm gonna screen share here. Out of the coaches, Michigan is number 8. So there are a few ahead, right? Including one named that I was a little surprised about, named Notre Dame. That one was definitely a little bit surprising, but to their credit, they did put Michigan, unlike some, they did put Michigan ahead of the mediocre Penn State program. So with that said, the first question I have for you is, what do you think about this poll, like as a whole? Do you agree with where everybody's at? What are your thoughts here? I know that this was one you wanted to address for sure.
Yeah, so this is a bit of new news for us. Anything we can get is great. In terms of the coaches poll, I am surprised that we got the respect from coaches, frankly, based on some of the, talk out there that, first of all, Michigan lost so many players. The returning production number is in the 100, like below 100. It was like 120 out of 130 schools or something like that. If this was a writer's poll, would the number be lower? I didn't think we'd be in the top 10, to be honest. So, so I'm surprised. And also we have such a huge question mark at quarterback.
Yep.
So all of those factors together, I think actually number 8 is higher than I thought it would be.
Yeah, same. I think for me, this is exactly right. Because of exactly what you just said. I think if you put them at 1 or 2 at this point, you're basically just using last year's results. The reality is Michigan has lost a decent chunk of talent on offense, some talent on defense. Meanwhile, you've got programs like Georgia, Ohio State, Oregon. Texas is returning Quinn Ewers, returning a decent amount of production on defense. DeBoer has things continuing to roll at Alabama. Ole Miss, fine with that. Notre Dame. So Notre Dame hasn't done anything since the 1980s. No offense to Will ND or anybody else who's a Notre Dame fan in here, but Notre Dame hasn't done anything since the 80s. And so I do struggle with that one, because even if Notre Dame is returning a lot more talent than Michigan is, and like I said, I don't think we should only use last year's results, but I don't think we can also completely toss out 30 years worth of football results completely. And the fact is, Notre Dame, when was the last time Notre Dame genuinely won like a really deep, big game? Or, would it be when they beat Michigan in 2018? Would that be it? It's been a while.
They went to the college football playoff, but
there's that. But they got blasted.
They didn't win, but they got there.
Yeah,
that's about it.
Yeah,
so, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, win. Yeah, they've been in bowl games. They've been put in the college football playoff because they went undefeated with a schedule that they created, which that's a whole other discussion. But that's the only one that bothers me. I'm fine with the actual ranking of where Michigan is versus the other teams. But the question that you would, I think this is a very good one. By the way, number 8, before I forget, number 8 is also where Mark Rogers' top 25 that actually makes sense has Michigan. So Mark Rogers has Michigan number 8. I think this is right at number 8. The coaches have it at number 8. Sounds like number 8 is a consensus, at least among people who are, looking at this objectively. But the question that I think is really interesting from this, what happens in these rankings if Michigan beats Texas? Where could they fall in this list?
Yeah, I mean, logically, I would think the undefeated reigning champion, defending champion that beats a top 4 team should be ranked number 1. That's what I would think logically. We won the title, not Georgia, right? Last year, as far as I know.
Yeah.
So I would think we should be ranked number 1. Now, is that going to happen? Probably not. They'll probably put Georgia ahead of us. It'll be interesting to be ahead of Ohio State. We'll see. But I would think that we would be ahead of Ohio State at number 2 then, if we're not number 1. If Texas beats us, are they moving up from number 4? I would think they would jump Oregon, maybe jump Ohio State as well. So that game is huge for both teams. It is really kind of an inside track to get into the playoffs, is what I would say. The other kind of note here is that we are playing this season number 2, number 3, and number 4. So it is theoretically, if you kind of look at all the different teams, you look at some of the other podcasters out there, when they try to pick 12 teams, it's hard to get to 12 before you're looking at SEC, like the 3rd SEC team, the 3rd Big Ten team. One of those teams actually might have 3 losses. So making the prediction that there'll be at least one team that will have 3 losses in either the SEC or Big Ten to make it to the playoffs, I would say there's like a 40% chance of that, maybe 40 to 50% chance of that happening. And if you were to pick the one team, maybe that team's Michigan, because if they lose to Ohio State, Oregon, and Texas, and all 3 of them remain in the top 5 for the rest of the season, who would have a harder schedule than that? I know these are quote unquote quality losses, but you got to look at it that if Michigan didn't play one of those 3 teams, they would definitely be in. So should they be in if they lose to number 2, number 3, and number 4? That's just a question mark.
I think they got to beat one of them. Look, for me, I think what will most likely happen is that Texas and Michigan would flip. I think there's too much, whether it's good PR, whether it's actually analyzing who's returning and who they got in the transfer portal. I don't think Georgia, Ohio State, and Oregon are moving unless one of them loses a game that they shouldn't. Like, for example, if Georgia loses to Clemson, then obviously there's going to be some shakeup, right? Or if Ohio State drops one early, which is very unlikely because they're playing like Western Michigan and some other really
it's
strong
all
schools
cupcakes for a while, and then they eventually play Oregon and Penn State and then Michigan. So yeah.
Ralph does mention, and thank you for that. I would agree that when Notre Dame beat number 1 Clemson in 2020, the first time they played, that would count. I count that. That I agree. That would probably be their big game that they won, and then subsequently Clemson got the better of them after. But at the very least, I do agree that that was their last big game that they truly won. That had national ramifications. So I'll give you that, absolutely. I guess with that said, we are almost at the 2-hour mark here. So I do want to remind everybody before we get to final thoughts and where could people find you, that coming up in about a half an hour, if you want to learn all about the Oregon Duck football program, because they are now a member of the Big Ten, and that's actually the title of the episode, is we're in the Big Ten now, or something like that. It's close to that. Go ahead and check out the Oregon Ducks live show on the Oregon channel at the Voice of College Football, coming up at 10:35 p.m. Eastern, with Exploring with Ben, Spaz, aka Sean Bryant, and others that come in from time to time. And it's definitely, it's kind of like a party atmosphere in there. Definitely very loosey
in there.
Yeah, loosey goosey, and but you learn about Oregon Ducks. So if you go in there, click the link. We'll post the link to the direct video there, and just let them know that John and Ferris sent you from the Michigan channel, so they can keep tally. They can keep aware of Wolverine country. Coming into to the Oregon Ducks, and since we literally just spent 10 minutes talking about Oregon and the other schools on that coaching's list, learn a little bit more about that program. And I do believe that out of the 4 coming in, this may or may not be a hot take, but I do believe that out of the 4, Oregon is best positioned right now to do well because of how that team is coached, as like a Georgia light in terms of the trench play. The defense, it feels like a Georgia light. So I think that they will have a little bit more success than a USC, who I think will have a little bit more success than a Washington, who will have more success than UCLA, who's probably going to be in the probably the Indiana category. Or they're going to have a rough time next year.
Yeah,
I think
that's a good take. I would I add to that I think the most important game of the year is the Oregon game. Win or lose Texas, if we win the Oregon game, I think we're in the playoffs. We do have to run the table on all the other games, but and outside of Ohio State. But I believe the Oregon game is going to be the pivotal game. That's the one that's going to define our season. That'll be basically a de facto playoff game with a like a second chance against Ohio State, maybe, but we've got to run the table on the other games if we lose to Texas, right? So this does remind me of back in the day where there'd be kind of like 3 big games. Michigan would have Notre Dame early, and then there'd be like a Michigan State in October, and then in Ohio State. I kind of feel it has that kind of vibe to it, where you've got the early Texas game, you've got the Oregon game in the middle of the season, and then you've got the big game at the end with Ohio State. So, I think they're the best positioned in the Big Ten. But who knows? I can't wait to see football. Let's see what happens. There's going to be some surprise. Let's see what that surprise is.
There will be surprises. Can't wait. It's always fun to watch college football, and watch it here with us every Tuesday and Thursday, and then on Saturday, we'll have the pregame show with TJ and Ferris, and the postgame show with myself and TJ. And I'm sure we'll have some cross shows where people pop into each other's things, and that should be really fun. I will mention that Detective Loki has gifted another membership. Detective Loki is tonight's Oprah, and we appreciate that. So he has given a membership to Dean B. So Dean B congratulations on becoming a Those Who Stay Will Be Champions member here at the Voice of College Football Michigan channel. And definitely you've got the emojis. You get access to our monthly hangout, all of that good stuff. Dean B is the 88th member now, I believe, for the Michigan channel. So thank you so much for that, Detective Loki. And now we come to final thought, and where can people find you on the internet? And of course, we'll start with Ferris. What a show. What a show. Always great to have you here.
Yeah. More and more, we're getting closer and closer, but there's more and more to talk about, which is great. I do look forward to actually talking about the game of football. That's what I originally was interested in with respect to Michigan football, the actual game of football. So I've been doing some, I was doing shorts. So I do shorts for the channel. I also do TikToks that are kind of a minute. I'm doing longer TikToks now. It's at Bobblehead Guru. I just tried typing it. It didn't allow me to do it, but at Bobblehead Guru. Take a look there. I'm also doing every Monday. Every Monday, I am doing a Smash the Numbers episode. They come out at 6 a.m. my time, but usually I do them overnight, so it's kind of dark behind me. But 6 a.m. my time, 9 a.m. Eastern time. And we're going to get more and more detailed with the numbers, and we're going to start to make predictions. I started doing some analysis on bold predictions that other people had. So I'm going to try to hold people accountable. We're going to talk about some of those predictions. This week's episode, if you want to go back to yesterday, was all about the Stallions and sort of my logic-based argument rebuttal to some of the things that are out there. We covered it on this show as well, but if you want more of that, just search on Smash the Numbers within this channel. So there's a whole category for that. Look forward to talking real football soon. It's coming. Mel Tucker and Deion Sanders said we're coming, but the football season definitely is. I don't know about the others, at least on the field. But definitely football season is almost here. And between now and then, tide yourself over with our interviews, with our video clips, with Smash the Numbers, and everything that Ferris is working on over at Bobblehead Guru on Instagram, TikTok, and Threads as well. Jackson always coming in on the clutch with the links. Really appreciate that. Ferris, thanks as always for being here. Thank you, and go blue. Go blue. We do have a special, before I let everybody go, a special programming announcement for Thursday. So TJ is going to be out until the Tuesday show, next Tuesday. So on Thursday, it's going to be, you're stuck with me. That's right, folks. Twice in 1 week, stuck with me. And we do have our special guest, Johnny Olden Jr. is stopping by, and we're going to be taking your calls. And as you know, the first hour is on the house. The second hour, $100. The third hour, another $100. That's right. Every single show now, we're heading to now everyone on the network, or at least a lot of people on the network will be doing that, where first hour, you got it no matter what. Second hour, we're going to start to ask for some super chats and some memberships to justify the extra hours of our time. And also, we'll actually, I plan to hide a couple of special topics too. So not only are there going to be extra hours of calls if you super chat the $100, but I'm going to save some topics for that second hour too. So even more enticement to donate on Thursday. So join us Thursday at 8 p.m. Eastern for Michigan Wolverines call-in show live, and join me in chat in 20-some minutes for the Oregon Ducks live show over at the Oregon channel here next to the Voice of College Football. Until next time, my name is John D'Adamo. Go Blue, and we'll see you in a couple days.